Okay, this video we've got another Toshiba. Unfortunately this one is the one I broke the volume control in when it tipped over in the car. Actually this has got all manual things, but it does say remote control. So that is what that remote likely came with. But that does have colour and brightness on it, so whether they work this or whether it's even for this TV, it's got all manual tuning. Now one thing I can't really remember is this earlier than the other one I looked at, which was 1986. This might be more like a 1984 or something. Got the sheet of glass on it. It's basically what they call a monitor style. Quite a cool era. I thought they look quite good, these TVs. So often they build up dust and cigarette smoke and stuff in between the glass and the tube, either the back of the glass and probably the tube as well. You often saw them a bit sort of dusty, a bit dark in there. This one's nice and clean for once. But many second-hand sets I had to take the glass off and clean them out. A lot of these had little bits there, but this one doesn't, I don't think. Oh, this has got something on the... Oh, here we go. Something on the side. Oh, and you just unclip it. I think it was the Ackeyes and stuff. They did a lot of TVs, rebadged Samsung ones, and you had a little plastic slide-out piece there. So they were a common one. Used to see a lot of those TVs, but yeah, now I think about it, that was the era when the larger TVs were still in wooden cabinets. This is a 147R3A model number. I think the other one was an E5 or something, possibly a later model. The R might have something to do with the remote, A might have something to do with Australia. But I think we're going to have to pull this to bits and fix that problem. But look at it, the back of this, you'd almost think it was a Commodore 64 monitor, so I guess if you couldn't afford the original one, you could try and find something like this. I mean, I remember when those Commodore 64 monitors and the 1084 monitors, you just couldn't give them away. So I used to use them as closed circuit TV cameras, and when I shut my shop down, I think I kept a couple of them for a little while, but they end up just getting tossed on the tip, which is kind of crazy when you consider what they're worth now. But unfortunately you couldn't even get $20 for them back in the early 2000s, before all this retro stuff took off. So I threw some of those away, unfortunately. I went up one of these Commodore style ones, and I think one or two 1084 monitors, but there just really wasn't a use for a CGA sort of resolution composite video monitor at that stage. But they did a good job, that's why I just used them in the shop. I could pick them up for $5 or something, or maybe less sometimes, in with other stuff, and just use them as a closed circuit TV one to keep an eye on the front of the shop and the backyard. But this doesn't even have AV, I guess is one of the problems with it. And it's probably, it's a live chassis, because again we've got our blue capacitors. Maybe a similar design to that last one we looked at. In fact, we have another SDR 5412, I think. Yeah, 5412. So it's probably almost an identical chassis. Got the same transistor output by the look of it. Almost in the same spot. So this is a very similar chassis to the other one. They didn't really change it. Tuner's in a different spot. I think, yeah, well, the switch mode's in a different spot in the middle. But yeah, very much the same era. And again, like I say, live chassis. Do not replace the antenna socket. On the tuner side of things, make sure you're on the other side of a bunch of capacitors like that. Sometimes if that socket's broken, you can put another one on the panel here. But make sure you connect it back into the isolated side of those capacitors, because they're there to stop you getting an electric shock. It's got a transformer for the speaker again. So this is a very similar set, except it doesn't have the sort of touch tuning with a memory like the other one did. We've still got a A34 Gen 30X tube by the look of it. Well, this has got some extra stuff up here, so we do have standby on the remote, because this will be our standby circuitry. It's got another power transformer up there, which is a dead giveaway. And there should be a relay or something. Does it have a relay? I can see a big connector there. Where's our power come in? To our switch. out of our switch. And I think we're going to have to take this board off because of the amount of wiring in this thing. It's got a heap of it. Just watch it doesn't drop off. It's got a fair bit of weight in that transformer there. Yeah, that's... I've got our degaussing coil all mixed up in there. That's probably enough. We'll just get that out of the way, and I can get that pot out of there. It's just got one screw, I think. Now it's got a big old infrared remote receiver next to it in quite a large metal box. Got a bigger speaker than the other one. Is that going to come? Yeah, something let go. Is it on a pin or something? And we snapped the pot shaft clean off. I thought that must have been what happened. I did have a feeling that I needed a new switch pot for this. So the shaft's in there. We're probably going to have to put a screw into that. Oh, I found one old wood screw. That'll do. Probably a flathead. I know it is a Phillips. And you just got to screw that in. It's probably the easiest way. You could melt a bit of wire in there. Let me just do it away from the TV. Sometimes it pays to actually, there we go, actually drill the hole a bit bigger. That one did go in. So there's our pot shaft. You probably could fix that if you wanted to, but I wouldn't really recommend it. So we'll see if we can still get one of these pots, if they're even available, and if it's a reasonable price. Otherwise you can put a bit of steel in there or something and glue it back together with a pin, like a stiff bit of spring or something I'd usually use for this sort of repair. Possibly you could even get a screw thread, cut it off, or wind part of it into there. Well, you'd probably have to cut it off anyway, wouldn't you? Oh no, you could screw it, maybe screw it into this part, drill a hole the right size here, and then cut the head off, screw this onto it. Something like that would be even stronger, plus a bit of glue. But when I put that screw, I might need that. We could bypass the switch, but I think we'll just... That might be a little bit big, that screw, but it does eventually start biting. Come on. There we go. You might find there's metal in there. Some of these did have metal in the shafts, which are a lot stronger, but they weren't made for the sort of thing I did to it. Let's turn the volume down. Maybe put the chassis back in, because I can't do any of the controls without the pot sticking through the front. Get in there. Bloody wires in the way. There we go. Are we in standby or something? Oh, we've got a light. Oh, that turned it on. Oh, still too loud. I've got to be careful here. I'm just touching the shaft of that pot and nothing else, because this is live chassis. Probably should put an isolation transformer on it. Nearly tuned in. Oh, we've got a bit of colour coming through. Open. And we've got a little tool here. If I can release it, you've got to push it out that way. Should do the band switch. Oh, we're on the right band switch, I guess. So you can put it in these little cross bits here. 3-position switches, little Phillips head looking things. And then we do the little thumb wheel. And like I thought, we're going to need, that's vertical, to adjust some of the brightness and stuff. Certainly not the best bit of tuning there. It's probably as good as it's going to get though. But I think it's a little dark as well, this contrast. Brightness goes way down. Does this have a sub brightness like the other one did? Got two pots on the back. Don't lose our little tool. And covered in dust. Sub brightness, so yeah, definitely don't use an uninsulated tool in this, because it is live chassis, so technically the wiper of the pot is live. Oh, there we go, barely touching it and it's doing something. Yeah, just touching the pot, so maybe that pot's a bit dirty. As long as it turns right down, but yeah, we should have a little bit of the black going white. Can always tweak the screen control up, but if it's got a sub bright, that's usually better to do that. So no vertical issues. I guess I should shut this horrible noise up. Doesn't go fully down, so I think all we need is that switch pot. This was meant to be a working TV. Oh, the other thing I've got to try. Oh, took the batteries out, didn't I? Well, I just pointed the remote at the remote receiver and that was enough to turn this thing off. I do have to press a channel. It's like a Philips TV. It's more a European. Of course, I think channel 8's the one that doesn't work. Yeah, I can bounce it off the other side of the building. And of course, I tune in on channel 8, which is the foldy button. I don't think we're going to do volume on this thing, because we've got a manual volume control. Oh, it does mute. Ah, so it's got some sort of override. I think some of these you could use it as like a sub volume, so you could turn the volume right up, which is probably why it was already quite loud. Yeah, then we can turn it down. Yeah, I do remember some TVs did that. You just left the manual volume up high. Still a little bit of noise when you mute it, maybe just so you know that you're muted and not wondering what's going on. Now, can we do the brightness? Oh, we can do brightness as well, so this does override the pots. So maybe I shouldn't have turned the sub brightness up, maybe it was turned down. Let's see how high it goes. Oh yeah, so there you go. I didn't need to touch the sub brightness at all. It was the remote. Let's set that to maximum and turn it down a bit. Like I say, a bit of white in the black is enough. Oh, what am I pressing? Oh, there you go. It's a rare old overriding remote. You've got manual controls and the remote. Quite a rare thing actually that you didn't see in many sets. Normally if they're remote, you've got push button volume, you've got push button colour and all the rest of it. And even these are sort of soft touch-ish, but they're not actually a clicking gang, so that's something they don't lock in place. So you need at least that, but often you just get an up and down button. So it's got one of those weird hybrid era ones where it's got a remote that sort of overrides manual controls. Of course, they had them right back to the black and white TVs. They actually had motors that would turn the old click around tuners and all that sort of thing. So it's not that amazing. I think they even had motors to turn the volume pot and stuff. But this is that sort of, it's an electronic remote, infrared, but no touch tune as such, although this kind of counts, I guess, as a touch tune. It's not a clicking bank. But yeah, it's got a volume control that's an old manual one, so really I don't need to fix the volume control, absolutely. I guess if we were using the remote, you could sort of say, well, who cares? We'll leave the broken one in there, I'll just glue it with a bit of spring or something in there, be enough. But the fact you're pulling these, you really do need more like a screw-in one, because you're going to be pulling on the actual piece. It's not just sideways stuff you have to worry about it not breaking off. So yeah, I think this is one you'd screw it in, but they only used to be about $7 or something for a pot. They're probably more now. So I might see if I can actually get one. I better make a note of what value it is. Let's put our little tool back in there too. It's amazing that's still in there. That's our AFT switch, I think. Yeah, you can move it to a different position, which disables automatic fine tuning. That may have improved the picture a bit when we shut the door. But yeah, didn't see many of these sets around. This model's a bit rarer, but again, they were so reliable that you just didn't tend to see the sort of things like this. And being a remote, people probably hung on to them a bit more, unlike the basic models which used to turn up second hand because someone had gone buy one with because they wanted a remote and AV and whatever, so it was time to upgrade. I guess we should really check the same cap in the vertical, but it looks fine. Maybe it doesn't run as hot in this one. That's what the board looks like anyway. Yeah, a few of the joints don't look absolutely perfect, but I don't think any of them are failing yet. Possibly the line output transformer's been redone already. Switch mode looks good. Vertical. Yeah, it's almost looking a bit like we're getting dry joints on the vertical output transistor, but sometimes that's just the way it looks. No, I think they're actually fine. They just look like a bit like they're getting a ring around them. Yeah, D408 there could do with doing this. Definitely starting to crack. Only just the ends of the connection, but good practice to go over anything like that. Always used to do it when you repaired a set, just go over any dry joints, keep it going for the customer, and also prevents it failing on the way home, sort of thing, in the car and being moved around. Just another TA7699, so this is almost identical to the other TV we looked at. I'm betting this circuit diagram of it would look very similar in the main parts. And does it have the same, I think it's got the same IF chip, 7680 AP, I think that was the same one. But yeah, definitely slightly different tuner. But other than that, quite a lot of similarities. I don't think the board has a number on it. PW4040 for that board. I didn't see one on the other board. But I better make a note of... Can we get that out far enough? See, I looked at that while I had it out before. Probably should take this tape stuff off so I can get this further out. It is 100k, so that's quite a high value one. So that's certainly a lot higher than you expect. Most of them are around the 10k value. But that might be a good thing. It might mean they didn't sell their stock out of those ones like the more common ones. Or it might mean they never stocked them at all, but I think you could get most values. Otherwise I might have to look out for a second hand one, or I can just patch it and do a repair. I'll put the shaft in a bag, I think, and I'll stick it to the top of the cabinet or something, just in case I need it. I'll better put the knob in the same place, maybe even the back of the set somewhere. So yeah, just put them inside the TV somewhere so they can be found again. And normally you'd just put a couple of the screws back in the cabinet, but I think I'll put them all back in this one. But if you're repairing it, you just assemble the minimum to keep everything safe. So a couple of diagonal screws in the cabinet was enough. You just shove the power cord inside it probably, if you can. Maybe not with this one so much. And before I put that back together, I better check the date on the cabinet, which is, being careful of the tube, down here. And it's an HB, well, that looks like the year as well. It's got 86, so is it an 86? Maybe these were sold, so about the 11th of April, not far off where we are now, but in 1986 maybe. I think they've just stamped the date on it. Well, that's interesting if it's actually the same era as that other one. Probably explains why it's a very similar TV. It may well have been sold in parallel. Can't actually get the circuit board on with the antenna socket in place, so you've got to start sliding it on. So this one you've actually got to get the circuit board started in its slots and then put the antenna socket in the back, or it doesn't want to go on. Power cord's just, no, it's not the power cord, what is it? Antenna wire was catching on the plastic around the power cord there, so another thing to watch. So this is a bit of a fiddly one. So normally if a manufacturer's making a high-end and low-end model, they'd come in the same cabinet and basically look the same, but some of the features would be missing or whatever. So it looks like maybe this, they made the higher-end monitor style plus remote control in a completely different looking box basically. So the base model would have probably been $300, $350 or something back then, and this might have been more around the $450, $500 mark, I'm guessing. So maybe they went the whole hog and made it look like a nicer TV as well. So they didn't make a base model in the monitor styling, I guess. But it's about right, because the Korean TVs came out around this sort of time in great numbers anyway. And we had like the Akai brand in Australia, and a lot of them were, the earlier ones, I think probably, were they still P50 chassis then? They probably were. Probably still the P50 chassis in these glass fronted things, as well as in the older rectangle boxes. So they must have kept the same chassis going, and they all suddenly changed to this sort of style, I guess, to try and look like these higher end Japanese ones. But I don't think most of them ever had any remote with them, or even the facilities for remote. So I'm guessing that this is actually the same era as that other one, going by the date stamping on it, and the circuitry is very similar, which I thought they might have kept it going over a few years. But maybe these are contemporary TVs. One's just the base model, all manual control. Neither of them has AV, but this one they made it in the nice monitor styling, and they added this sort of rather weird remote functions, which this one's obviously had a lot of use, that kind of override the manual controls. But like I say, most of they pretty quickly cottoned on, I think, that if you just put push button controls everywhere and duplicate them on the remote is the cheapest and easiest way to do it. Some of these early ones, these were sort of the era when In Australia, they were really only just starting to go push button around this era as a more common thing, as a more standard thing. Get rid of the old rotary tuners, because even like the 83p Sanyos, and I think even possibly even the 84, 85p Sanyos still had VHF only. The Q chassis AWA, QM chassis, not sure if did they make a rotary tuner ML chassis? I don't think they did. I think that was a push button only chassis, but they went quite late in Australia. People were still buying VHF only rotary tuner TVs. So certainly in the early 80s, like the 80p Sanyo, they sold millions of those TVs as a single rotary tuner, both in portables and around the 20-inch models. The, what was it? Yeah, CTP 3618, I think, was an 80p. Millions of these little white portables, VHF only. And the 6630, what the hell is the model number of the bigger one? I can't remember what the model number was. And the 83p Sanyo looked exactly the same, wooden box, single rotary tuner, but a slightly improved chassis in it. Admittedly, they didn't sell a lot of those, I don't think, but mainly because everyone probably bought the model before. So this was quite a fancy model at that time, though a lot of the TVs in Australia were starting to switch over to fully push button. They did make larger versions of these as well in pretty much the same cabinet. I remember owning a few of those and fixing them up and selling them again. Very nice little TVs. I get a feeling they might have made a 16, 18 inch, something like that, and maybe a slightly bigger one. But they did come in a few sizes, these things, and they were very nice little TV. Even in the later 90s, they were still quite a high-end type of set, especially compared to a lot of the stuff that was coming out in those days, the cheaper stuff. But, oh, we've actually got a black stripe branding there, and a little colour bar thing there. Electronic tuning, which obviously was still a thing. Does this one have the other one had a Made in Japan badge on it? It doesn't look like they bothered putting on this. Maybe it was assumed it was made in Japan because it's a bit higher end. And yeah, really still wants the glass taken off, a bit of dust in there. But I think I'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, quite a nice little TV. I was actually expecting this to be a different age to the other one, but it looks like they might have been a contemporary thing. And I've got an NEC with this glass front, but it's nowhere near the quality of these things, I don't think. I'm pretty sure it's a Korean one. Be interesting to have a look, actually. Probably got a similar setup in the power supply, so we might have a look at that one next. And get a couple of these glass fronted things out of the way. I think that's the only two I've got in the glass fronted style, at least in portables. But anyway, thanks for watching.